Have you ever given your whole heart to someone, only to watch them destroy you piece by piece? Today's story is about a woman who was 5 months pregnant. She cooked for her husband and his friends, hoping to make them happy. Instead, they humiliated her, laughed at her stretch marks, and pushed her out into the storm. That night, she lost everything, including her baby, but she didn't lose herself forever. This isn't just a sad story. It's a warning, and it's a lesson in walking away when you're finally done being treated like trash. If you've ever felt trapped in a toxic relationship, watch this till the end. Let's begin. I was 5 months pregnant and remained home to cook a big meal for Daniel's friends, who he had invited over. During a game of Truth or Dare, Susie lost on purpose to celebrate his birthday and picked reality. She looked at my huge baby bulge and said, "Luke's stretch marks are so ugly like a swarm." The words hit me like a slap, and I froze, looking at the others. My face was burning. The guilt and embarrassment made me lose the last bit of self-respect I had left. I told Daniel to calm down and apologize. His expression darkened. Susie was only... He screamed, "Why do you have to take it so seriously? If you're upset, don't eat that night." A tempest raged. Outdoors as violently as the storm inside me, wearing nothing but my skimpy pajamas, I was shoved out of the home. The rain soaked through the cloth nearly right away, and I heard Daniel's arrogant voice behind the door as I stood there shivering. "She's pregnant and still thinks she's some beauty queen," he remarked, laughing with his companion so fat nobody else would want her. "Besides me, just wait. She'll be back on her knees begging to come in within 10 minutes. But this time, he was wrong. I turned away without thinking, my damp hair stuck to my face, and I went. I called a cab from downstairs and told the driver to take me to the hospital. I knew precisely where it was, what I needed to do that night. I arranged an abortion since a man like him doesn't deserve to be a father. There was a doctor on duty that night when I informed her I wanted an abortion. She hesitated, and her voice seemed hesitant. "Are you sure you want to go through with this? You're already 5 months along. Does the father know?" "The father is deceased," answered without wasting a beat. Her eyes softened with sorrow while she didn't probe further, given that Daniel had never went with me to a prenatal appointment, and since we weren't technically married, she didn't have to. Distrust me after confirming my decision numerous times, she arranged the treatment for 2 days later. That be why I had done everything I could to stay dry when I got home, but the heavy rain made it impossible to do so. The wind cut through me like shards of ice, but I barely felt it. My thin pajamas stuck to my wet skin. When I opened the door to our apartment, my body and mind were numb. The party was over, but the mess it left behind was still there. Daniel was lying on the couch with a cigarette between his fingers when he heard the sound of he got mad and threw a pillow at me without saying a word. "Lucy, all this drama over Susie. Running off into the night to make a joke was really necessary," I said again. His voice was still accusatory as he said, "She's just a kid." My throat tightened. "Why are you even battling with her? He doesn't know any better, and you're about to be a mom." It was a joke to say that stretch marks looked like maggots crawling on my skin, and it was a laugh to label me obese and gross. Danielle thought that every slur that Susie threw at me was simply a funny joke. Susie was just he stated, little girl, as if that made everything okay. But he conveniently forgot that I had been just a girl before I married him. I was only a year older than Susie, but he still wanted me to do what he said. Shoulder the weight of everything, his temper, his cruelty, and now even his friends' poisonous words every time Susie mocking me. I saw Dan spring to her protection without hesitation. Together they dragged me through the dirt, taking away what little dignity I had left. "Susie's not wrong," he said with a sneer. "It's so annoying that you can't handle a little honesty." I was honest, angry, heartbroken, and most of all, I was done. I would have fought with him again. I was desperate to save the little respect I thought I deserved in this marriage, but now I saw no point in fighting. Seeking something so rotten that it was too far gone, the effort wasn't worth it. The pillow slapped my back and hit me square in the waist. The dull agony throbbed, but I stayed quiet, holding on to the doorframe for support. My lack of response must have seemed like submission to Daniel because he smirked, his voice tinged with joy. "What are you standing there for? Don't you see how untidy the place is? Get to cleaning already." That I glanced down, the floor was covered with signs of their celebration, poured booze combined with smears of cake icing. The cake mess they'd made when they pushed me out into the storm and told me I wasn't welcome when they... Everyone else was laughing and cheering, but now that there was a mess to clean up, I was the only one expected to do it. Decided to ignore the chaos in the living room and head straight to the bedroom, I twisted the doorknob and froze. Susie walked out wearing one of my most delicate, now ill-fitting nightgowns. Her lips curled into a fake, astonished smile. "Be Lucy, I didn't know you were back." "I didn't have anything to wear, so I borrowed this. Now that you're pregnant, it's not like it suits you anymore. Don't mind, do you?" I scowled and looked at Daniel, who was still resting on the couch. He didn't even look at me. His voice was icy as ice. He was pouring outside. I couldn't let a young girl take a chance. I told her to stay the night for her safety. "You're not really going to start a fight over this, are you?" he said to me. His wife was 5 months pregnant and wet in rain, but he didn't care at all. Compassionate and protective of his so-called sister, disappointment surged in my chest, heavy and stifling. I couldn't muster the energy to argue anymore. Without a word, I entered the bedroom, closing the door behind me. I didn't notice Daniel's brief expression of astonishment as I departed. I figured I had no reason to bother with Susie here. I was in bed when he walked into the room. His hands were warm and he said quietly, almost as if he was sorry, insistent as he found his way to my waist. Still hurting, I cleaned the house before I could answer. He kept talking in a tone that was somewhere between pleading and scolding. "Lucy, please stop. You made me seem bad in front of all our friends tonight. Susie was just kidding and you got so mad that it wasn't good for the baby. Come on." It's understandable that I couldn't help but chuckle bitterly. "You still care for the baby." His hand froze on my belly. He leaned in closer after a second and his lips moved toward mine, but I stopped him from guiding his hand to my belly, where the stretch marks looked like scars from my sacrifice. As soon as his fingers touched the ridges, he pulled back like he had been burned. I saw the look of disgust in his eyes before he rapidly tried to hide it. He opened his mouth, maybe to say sorry, but his phone chimed and broke the stillness, followed by Susie's crying voice on the other end. "I'm sorry, Dee. I must have made Lucy upset. I shouldn't have stayed. I'm upset. I'll just go home." Her voice stopped and was replaced by a sharp cry, and then the call disconnected. Daniel's demeanor shifted. He panicked right away and grabbed his coat and pulled me out of bed. "If something happens to Susie," he yelled, "I swear I'll never forgive you." As he pulled me toward the door, I said, "Is this my fault?" and tried to get away, but he didn't care. He shoved me into the car, ignoring my complaints and the fact that I was still in my flimsy, damp pajamas. The cold wind bit into my skin, and I couldn't stop sneezing or shaking. Daniel didn't notice. He was too busy looking at the road. We pushed the throttle pedal all the way down, and 10 minutes later, we saw her Susie sitting on the side of the road. Daniel jumped out of the car when her foot twisted and tears started to fall. Clutching her as if she were made of glass without hesitating, he sped to the hospital, yelling commands at me the entire manner. "This is your responsibility. If something happened to her, I'll make sure you regret it." While Susie was being checked, the stress and weariness of the night finally caught up with me. A piercing pain pulsed through my abdomen, forcing me. I had to hold on to the wall to keep my balance, and my forehead was covered in sweat as I fought to calm my breathing. Eventually, Daniel saw me and his face hardened. "Stop putting on a show," he said. "Did you fall too? Are you just trying to take the focus away from Susie?" His remarks hurt more than my stomachache. "I can't believe how selfish you are, Lucy. You act so kind, but deep down you're simply spiteful and petty." I could answer, but a doctor strolled by and her attention moved back and forth between us. Her face creased with confusion as she hesitated. "What's your relationship?" she asked, her tone wary. Panic clawed at me. As I struggled to come up with an answer, the doctor's remarks from earlier kept coming back to me. "You stated the father was dead." But before I could say anything, a loud scream came from the exam room. Susie's voice was full with anguish and frailty, calling for Daniel. When Daniel turned and disappeared into the room, I let out a bitter laugh to myself. I said softly, "That's my brother. He and his wife had a fight tonight." The doctor sighed, her concern clear but restrained. "You've arranged the procedure, but at this stage, you need to be very careful. Go home and rest. You don't want anything to happen before then." I nodded as she walked away, her white coat fluttering as she went down the hall. The ache in my chest hurt. My breast swelled as I stood there alone, wishing I could sink into the ground and disappear. I thought about sitting down to regain my breath, but before I could, Daniel returned. He grabbed me forcibly and pulled me inside the hospital room. He pointed at Susie lying dramatically on the bed and barked, "I'm sorry for what I said that shocked Lucy. If you hadn't been so difficult tonight, Susie would have stayed home safe and sound. Now that she's been hit by a car because of your tantrum?" I couldn't help but chuckle bitterly at his shameless claim that this was my fault. "Didn't you hear what she said to me tonight? She insulted me, she insulted your child, or are you too stupid to realize that?" It was the first time in 5 years that I had looked at him with such cold scorn. Daniel's face twisted with rage. His eyes were bloodshot, and he opened his lips to respond, but Susie's voice cut him off. "I'm sorry, it's all my fault. I was just trying to cheer you up. I didn't mean to. Please don't fight over me, Lucy. We'll quit my job and leave the city once he's better. You'll never have him back." She cried as she did her martyr act to see me again. Daniel's jaw was clenched and his voice was low. "I'm so mad I'm only going to say this once more. Lucy said she was sorry. I told you 1,000 times." I stared at him without blinking while he held a grudge against a young girl. I turned around and went out of the room without saying a word. His angry voice followed me. "If you leave now, don't bother coming back. Lucy, you'll come crawling back with the baby shortly." Enough tears blurred my vision as I hurried through the hospital's corridors, ignoring the curious stares of strangers. The rain outside was still coming down hard, soaking through my thin clothes in a matter of seconds. The hospital was in a remote area, and despite waiting for what felt like an eternity, I couldn't hail a cab. Somehow my baby seemed to sense my battle sitting calmly in my gut for the first time all night. The stillness was oddly pleasant. When the rain eventually stopped, I walked 3 kilometers to the nearest motel where I got wet. Weary and absolutely drained, it was 4 in the morning by the time I finally laid down. Unable to sleep, I opened my phone and visited Susie's social media. As expected, she had just uploaded something new. The shot showed Daniel's hand rubbing her sore ankle with the message, "Beautiful words mean nothing compared to tender deeds. The one who loves you never complains about the work. Thank you." The post had already gotten a lot of likes, mostly from Daniel's pals who never regarded me but were crazy about Susie. Made it easy to picture Daniel's role in this dynamic. He must have told them so much about me over the years, and he must have made me look like a nagging, unworthy wife, and they had easily believed him. Just as I was going to close the app, a torrent of comments came in. Someone had said, "Never lift a finger for a woman? Looks like Susie changed that. Must be her princess charm." Each statement was like a dagger reminding me how cheap and miserable my part in this relationship had become. We had been together for 5 years and never even filed for marriage. I was 5 months pregnant and he treated me like a burden. Of course, he didn't care about me. Why would he? I let out a hollow laugh. I closed the app and finally allowed myself to fall asleep for the first time in years. I turned off my phone completely before falling asleep. When I woke up at noon, I saw his flood of messages. "You didn't come home. Where the hell are you? Send me your location. Lucy, are you ignoring me? Don't push it. Susie isn't even furious at you anymore. She even wants to take you to the movies. Take this chance to apologize and let it go. Stop being so hard on him." His tone was as condescending as ever, as if he were giving me some grand mercy. I scratched my temples, tired even after hours of sleep. It was time to stop this. I sent him my hotel address without thinking twice. It was time to lay everything bare. The car pulled up in front of the hotel. The passenger side window rolled down. Daniel's eyes swept over me and his expression changed right away. "You went out in a bathrobe?" he snapped. "Are you trying to make yourself look pitiful?" I was absolutely worn out after these last few days. "Yesterday, the rain wet my nightgown. What else could I have done?" He was about to reply, but it got stuck in his throat. Seeing this, Susie smiled softly with her eyes. "I told you Luke isn't that bad," she said with fake innocence. "This must be all a misunderstanding. Let's straighten it up. Oh, and Daniel gave me a jacket earlier. Why don't you try it on? It could fit you. But now I forced a smile, my face cold. You don't need to wear it again. I don't like wearing unclean clothes. Her smile faltered for a split second, but she quickly got it back and stayed firmly in the front seat. I climbed into the back without saying anything, and Daniel probably meant to scold me, but he stopped when he saw me. He seemed a little confused by my calm demeanor and lack of reaction. Sussy, feigning belated realization, added, "Sorry, Lucy, my foot still hurts and there's more room up front. I hope you don't mind sitting in the back." I felt Daniel's gaze on me from the rearview mirror. He looked closely at my face, but I didn't pay attention. I leaned back and closed my eyes. Sussy's chatter filled the car. She tried to get me to change out of my robe, which was a thinly veiled attempt to show concern. It was evident that they were making fun of how messy I looked, but I didn't have the energy or desire to get involved. Even Daniel was annoyed with her comments. "Let it go," he snapped. "Who cares what she's wearing? She's pregnant." His dismissive tone made Sussy smirk and her eyes flash. People were paying attention to her outfit anyway. They talked about their plans for future adventures and remembered the ones they had just taken throughout the rest of the ride. The party was full of memories that I wasn't a part of. I didn't mind. It gave me the silence I needed. Daniel continued looking at me in the glass, and my silence appeared to make him nervous. When we got to the theater, he thought there would be an outburst, but there wasn't. He turned to me and said something in a gentler voice. "Stay close to me in the dark. Cling on to me if you need to." I almost smiled at the irony. Because of Sussy, I got to sit next to him one final time for a farewell movie. As we walked in, Sussy pulled Daniel's arm and pulled him well ahead of me. Her delight was clear. Once again, I was alone, roaming through the rows till I found my seat. When I sat down, I saw Daniel at the other end, twisting a bottle cap for Sussy under the dim light. When he saw me in the faint light, a flash of shame crossed his face. He moved in closer and said in a low voice, "Sussy got a little impatient before." "I didn't think to check on you. Don't be mad, okay?" I gave him a slight, uninterested smile. "I'm not upset. Not this time and not ever again." After the movie, I didn't get out of there right away. I had something to tell him that I don't think he totally understood, because he was acting weird. But Sussy immediately interrupted, asking for help opening her popcorn. He turned back to her, his attention completely absorbed. Once again, Calamity struck halfway through the movie with a loud snap. A steel beam overhead came away and dropped toward the seats below. The audience had barely seconds to react. People crouched and sheltered themselves without thinking, but I was pregnant and frozen in astonishment, so I couldn't move. I was in a cold sweat when the beam hit. It landed only a few inches in front of me. If it had been a little closer, it would have crushed my stomach. In the middle of the turmoil, Daniel's focus was elsewhere. As the emergency lights came on, he held Susie with his whole body to keep her safe. He didn't even look at me. Instead of checking on me, he picked up Susie and ran her out of the theater. The rescue team eventually found me and helped me out, their hands steadying my shaking body. I looked outside, but there was no sign of Daniel. The rescue team insisted on sending me to the hospital for a checkup since they were anxious about complications. I agreed when I finally got to the emergency room because I was too tired to keep worrying about possible problems. Daniel was waiting in line to pay for Susie, who was sitting in a chair in the corner. "Lucy, it was so close. You're really lucky." Susie's voice trembled through the fog, but her usual sweetness was gone. Her voice was almost icy, threatening as if mocking my survival. "You're not so awful yourself," I shot back, reluctant to let her get the upper hand. Even though I was watching Daniel pay at the counter, his indifference was the last straw. Susie leaned out and put her palm on my belly, breaking the final pieces of my heart. She was cold and calculating, a smile forming on her lips. I recoiled, pushing her hand away. A profound dread rushed through me, yet I couldn't react further. Susie grabbed my wrist and threw herself off in one quick motion. My bracelet broke as I was going back toward the stairs, and the beads scattered all over the floor. Her body hit the stairs with a sickening thud, and in an instant Daniel raced past me. "Move!" he yelled, thrusting me aside so forcefully I stumbled backward. My feet slipped and I tumbled down the staircase. The sharp edge of a step hit my stomach so hard that I gasped in pain and fell to the ground at the base of the stairs. I was in so much pain that every nerve in my body screamed. My vision was blurry and my voice hardly rose above a whisper. "Daniel, help me!" Yet he didn't even glance in my direction. He scooped Susie into his arms and ran straight into the emergency room, his focus entirely on her. I could hear the doctor from last night yelling for help next to me. My consciousness flickered. A voice through the fog. "Move her to surgery. She's bleeding heavily. Get the induction team ready. She already scheduled the procedure, so let's do it now." Those words gave me a peculiar sense of peace. It's over. The anesthesia coursed through my veins, and just before I passed out from the numbness, I heard Daniel's voice in a panic and frantic for the first time. "Where is my wife? Where are you taking her?" Wife! I wanted to laugh but couldn't summon the strength. I only felt pity. Pity for myself, for this child, for the years I'd lost. Daniel's voice got louder outside the operating room, yelling at anyone who would listen. "Get out of my way! Where's my wife? She collapsed right here in your hospital. Where did you take her?" A staff member tried to calm him down, saying, "Sir, please, there must be some misunderstanding." The woman in surgery stated her spouse was already gone. Daniel's voice broke. "What kind of joke is that? If you are her spouse, kindly show me your marriage certificate," the nurse said forcefully. A heavy silence followed. I was in a deep sleep and had no idea what was going on. 5 years ago, the Daniel in my memory was kind of strange but full of genuine care. I remembered standing on the doorstep of my parents' house, their eyes filled with worry as they were getting ready to go for Germany. "Lucy, are you sure about this? Once we leave, you'll be all alone here," my mother murmured, her voice full of worry. Daniel stood next to me looking worried. Solemn but determined, he pounded his chest with confidence as he made his vow. "Don't worry, I swear on my life that I'll take care of Lucy. She'll be the most important person in my life, I promise." Those words were enough for me to stay behind for him. I gave up my happiness for him. I gave up my profession, my goals, and my freedom to be there for him. I cooked, cleaned, and kept our home running as he went to many business dinners and late-night meetings to follow his dreams. Parties. I waited at the door, eager for the sound of his keys jingling. When things were difficult, I survived on instant oatmeal for months to save money for my startup, and at that time, I emailed my parents phony pictures of a perfect life in Germany to help them feel better. Those days lasted for 2 years. Back then, Daniel still cared about me and still recognized the sacrifices I made and the problems I had. On every holiday, he found modest ways to show it. Ways to surprise me that didn't cost a lot of money, like kind gestures that showed he cared. He'd say that once his company took off, he'd make me the happiest lady in the world. We'd have the wedding I deserved, apply for our marriage certificate, and live the life we'd always wanted. One day we'd have a lovely child, and that would prove to my parents that I'd made the right choice. Those days were challenging, but they were also the happiest I'd ever been. Now Daniel's firm had done well, but with that success came a version of him that I hardly recognized. He was busier than ever, and the nights I spent waiting for him stretched endlessly. Sometimes I waited until dawn only to receive a single dismissive text. Other times there was no message at all. He told me that's exactly how it is. No successful man circles around his family. The promises he made were now simply memories I held on to. For 5 years I told myself it was okay, that he just needed time and that things would get better. But this pregnancy changed everything. He must have known that I wouldn't leave him now, so he started pushing me more and more to see how far he could go, how much I could take. It was then that I found out how little I meant to him in front of his buddies. I heard him bragging about how easily he had won me over. I now cooked and cleaned for him, and was about to do something else, bear his child. His companions laughed, their eyes mocking as they looked at me. I sat there swallowing my pride, convincing myself that nothing else mattered as long as he was with me. But when he introduced Susie into our house, my frail hold broke. He called her his secretary and said she was young, but I didn't believe a word of it. I watched him with her, how tender and attentive he was, how much he cared for her. He called her his sister, but I didn't believe that either. I watched his compassion, his devotion, the care in his acts that he hadn't shown me in years. He acted like a lovesick teenager, careful and serious in a way I had forgotten he could be. I realized then that I was no longer a part of his world. I couldn't let go, though. How could I? I had given him the best years of my life. Now I was minding our child. I had become the precise thing I used to loathe, a bitter, angry woman who screamed and argued. I needed to know what was going on between them, even though I already knew. Every fight took away what little was left of our relationship, and then came that night, the party, Sussie's nasty jabs, and Daniel's unending explanations. It was the last straw for me, the one that destroyed me entirely. Mom, I finally get what you meant all those years ago, but it's too late now. The surgery didn't go well, and the fall had been too harsh, the impact too strong. The hospital steps were steep, and by the time I got to the operating table, the child inside me was already dead before the process started. I started bleeding, and I could hear the panicked voices of the doctors calling for blood transfusions. "The blood bank is out of stock," a nurse replied urgently. For a tiny minute, I thought maybe it's better this way. Maybe I should just let go. I couldn't understand how I would go on. After the abortion, I had to face my parents. One bad choice almost ruined my whole childhood, but then someone gave blood, someone with just enough kindness to keep me alive. Slowly, I felt warmth returning to my body. The doctors stabilized me, and one of them remarked, "Let us proceed with the induction." They cut me. Cold surgical equipment against my skin made the stretch marks look like crawling maggots, which Sussie had made fun of. They would never look the same again. This time, they would leave deeper scars that would last forever, branding my body with the price of this nightmare. Finally, the child was taken out of my body, dead and quiet, while they stitched me up. As the drugs began to wear off, I passed out from the discomfort. The next time I opened my eyes, the doctor stood by my side and watched my condition closely while I was in a normal hospital bed. Seeing me awake, she leaned forward, her voice a mix of uncertainty and haste. "Miss Lucy, when you planned the procedure, you said your husband had died. So who is the man outside saying he is your husband?" I turned my head. As I gently turned my head to follow her gaze through the hallway window, I noticed Daniel standing there with bloodshot eyes. I stated frankly that I didn't know him and that maybe there was something wrong with him mentally, but he had given a lot of blood for the surgery. The doctor said our blood bank was empty and he handed over half of what his body could endure. I forced a bitter smile, my voice sharp. "He should have. I slid down the steps because of him. This is the least he can do." The doctor hesitated when he saw how tired I was, but he finally left the room. She must have talked to Daniel in the corridor because I saw him waving his arms around and begging her to do something, to explain himself. After what felt like ages, he finally left. The memories of him made me sick to my stomach. The memory of him pushing me down the stairs kept playing in my head over and over. I assumed that would be the end of us, a messy, confusing finish to a relationship that never should have happened. I even purchased a ticket to Germany, ready to return to my parents and leave this misery behind. But Daniel showed up. This time he had an old, fading wedding photo. It was from a real wedding snapshot, only one we'd taken for fun in front of a cheap background when we were young and broke. He had used it to convince the doctor, who didn't want to take him to my room. Before leaving, the doctor gave me a look of pity, as if apologizing for what she had done. I lay calm, my eyes closed, pretending I hadn't seen him. I felt his gaze on me, heavy and searching before he eventually broke the quiet. "I'm sorry," he started, his voice low. "I was too nervous before. I didn't think it would end up like this. Susie's health has always been weak, and I was worried something might happen to her. I didn't know how to tell her parents if anything had gone wrong." He hesitated as if expecting me to respond, but I stayed mute. "I swear," he continued, "when I rushed over, I didn't see you. I would never hurt you, Lucy. The baby was my child too. I wouldn't have done anything to harm it." His words blurred into a flood of excuses that sounded hollow. The agony from the surgery throbbed beneath the layers of gauze, intense and persistent, but his words wounded more. He had gone through so much trouble to get here, yet the first thing out of his mouth was a defense of his own actions, a plea for understanding. Not once did he inquire if I was in pain. Not once did he ask how my body was holding up. Not once did he ask if I was okay. I looked at his tense, worried face and suddenly laughed. Tears streamed down my cheeks, soaking the collar of my hospital gown. My chest felt brutally cold, as if my heart had frozen over. "What's wrong?" Daniel's voice trembled, his worry clear. "Don't scare me. Are you in pain? Should I call the doctor right now? Just hang on, wait." I stopped him, my voice firm despite the fury screaming inside me. He froze, staring at me with surprise. "There's no need," I replied quietly. Daniel's look changed to incredulity when I told him to break up. "I am tired. I won't blame her or you, but please don't ever show up in front of me again, not in this life or the next." Next, I told him I never wanted to see him again. The finality of my words seemed to take the wind out of him, and he stared at me in shock. It was as if he couldn't understand what I had just said. A few moments later, his phone rang loudly, breaking the quiet. He glanced at the screen and his expression went troubled. I let out a harsh, bitter laugh. "Go ahead, you're free now. Be with whoever you want. It's not my business anymore." 5 years of love and our goodbye didn't even need words of closure. It started quickly and ended badly, with no grace or dignity. I imagined he would quickly go out to answer Sussie's call, but this time he thought about it and didn't answer. He turned back to me. "I know I let you down today," he said, his voice low and strained. "But I promise this was the last time I'll talk to Sussie. I'll make things clear. She's simply like family to me. Lucy, occasionally when I see her, it reminds me of a younger you. I couldn't help but want to protect her." I looked at him, shocked, a sarcastic smile creeping across my face. "Daniel, I'm still alive. Don't use me as an excuse to cheat on someone else. It's not fair." He really seemed flustered for the first time. "Lucy, how can you say that? You know I'm not that kind of guy. When have I ever deceived you in the last 5 years?" I didn't answer, and he pressed on, his voice rising in fury. "This whole incident happened because you were being nasty. If you had simply let it go, none of this would have escalated. I didn't want things to turn out this way, Lucy." I had never been this tired. His words hit me like unclean water, full of accusations that I didn't even care to hear or refute. "Think whatever you want," I said, my tone flat. "If you believe a mother being insulted doesn't deserve to react, if you think I'd hurt someone else, then go ahead and take this chance to end it." He was so shocked that his lips parted as if to protest, but the phone rang again. This time he didn't hesitate. He shot me a disappointed look, then left without another word. The moment he was gone, I took out my phone and texted my parents. "Hey, I'm coming to Germany in 2 weeks. This time I'm not coming back." It didn't take long for my mother to respond. She must have sensed something was wrong because her reply came almost immediately. After that, I got a phone call. I gazed at the screen, tears welling up again. I couldn't answer. If I did, she would hear the pain in my voice, see through the weak lies I had been telling her for years. The phone rang and rang. After numerous attempts, my mother finally stopped calling. I took a big breath and sent her another text saying, "I was eating when you phoned. Sorry I didn't answer. I just miss you and Dad. I think it's time I spent more time with my family." "You were right about Daniel. We weren't suitable for each other. I should have listened to you." Her reply came immediately, confirming the details of my arrival. She assured me they'd meet me at the airport. For the first time in what felt like forever, warmth spread through my chest. The sterile, lonely hospital room didn't feel so suffocating anymore. The nurse came in to change my bandages and looked at me. It wasn't as bad anymore. "Miss, who is that man outside? He showed us a picture of a wedding, but he's been in another woman's room all day." I smiled weakly, my voice dry and brittle. "It's simply an old picture of me modeling. Don't take it seriously, we're just co-workers." As soon as I said that, I froze. When did I become like this? When did I start telling lies so easily? The old me would have hated this version of myself. Bitter, shattered, and dishonest. But here I was, holding on to my last bits of pride, weaving falsehoods merely to prevent anyone's pity. The nurse departed quietly, and I lay there staring at the ceiling. That night, when I was alone in the dimly lit hospital room, I felt emptier than ever. I thought I heard Daniel fighting with the doctor outside. "My wife lost our child in your hospital. You need to take responsibility." He snapped, his tone crisp and relentless. "Where were your nurses?" "My child may have been spared if someone had noticed sooner. Now my wife is almost dead. This is your fault, doctor." The doctor, plainly losing patience, responded coldly. "Sir, please calm down. Lucy had set up the induction 2 days before. Even without the fall, the baby couldn't have been spared." There was a pause. Then the doctor continued with an edge in their voice. "Your wife fell, and our staff saw someone tugging her toward the stairs. If you don't believe me, you're welcome to call the police and look at the security footage." The sound of a door opening scared me. Through the dim light, I watched Daniel come into the room. His face was stiff and his eyes were dark. I shifted uncomfortably in bed, furrowing my brow. He didn't say a word. I couldn't figure out what he was feeling. He walked over, adjusting the blanket around me and carefully drawing the curtains shut. He lingered for a moment before finally whispering, "I'm sorry." The apology was so quiet it was carried away by the night breeze. I wasn't even sure I'd heard it. The next morning when I opened my eyes, Daniel was gone. The only thing that showed he had been there was the insulated container of hot porridge the nurse placed by my bed. I urged her to throw it away. Instead of ordering breakfast from the hospital cafeteria, she hesitated, her eyes flickering with something unspoken before finally blurting out, "You probably don't know yet, do you? That man, he reported someone to the police first thing this morning." I looked up from my breakfast, unfazed. "Who did he report?" "The person who tried to shove you down the stairs, of course," she said, interested. I unlocked my phone and opened the news. Sure enough, a picture of Susie with her face twisted in rage made the headlines. Reports said that her acts had been caught on camera and that her attempt to feign innocence had failed. There was a lot of talk in the comments section about the case, with many people calling her a murderer and predicting a long prison sentence. But as I read, I felt nothing. Susie being convicted and put away for years wouldn't bring back my child. It wouldn't take away the pain of that night. There was a big difference between choosing to end a pregnancy and being forcibly forced into it. That day, I hadn't actually wanted the abortion. Daniel's cold indifference and anger had pushed me to make that decision. It had been a desperate cry for some kind of control, but now none of it mattered. The nurse could tell I was quiet. She felt uneasy, so she said a hasty farewell and left, leaving my breakfast on the table. I ate slowly, neatly before laying the plate away. Daniel came later in the day, bursting into the room as if he had something vital to say. But as he saw me, his voice stuttered. Without saying anything, he slipped into the chair near my bed and stayed there quietly, as if we had made an unwritten deal, that he wouldn't bring up what had happened and I wouldn't ask. The silence between us wasn't weird, but it also wasn't comforting. It was the kind of silence that crept over a bond that had once been strong, but had broken beyond repair. Throughout the night, my phone vibrated continuously with Daniel's apologies. Message after message filled the screen, but I had no desire to read them. By dawn, I heard the door close as he departed for work. I got out of bed, washed up, and called a cab to take me to the airport. There was nothing else to say, nothing else to do. I left behind a single message. "Never see me again. This is the end for us." The apartment we lived in and the house he acquired after his business took off had nothing to do with me. Leaving it behind was surprisingly easy. Letting go of this relationship, this man, it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. Maybe it was because I had already been let down too many times. Each disappointment had chipped away at my love until there was nothing left to save. I had done everything I could. There was no regret or doubt in my mind that I had given him everything I had. As the plane lifted off, I stared out upon the clouds and softly said farewell to the person I used to be. From this moment on, I told myself I would rebuild my life. I felt in my heart that every day from now on would be better than the last. If you've made it this far, thank you. I hope my story inspires you, even if it's only a little. If you have something to say, please leave a comment below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this story. There are still a lot of stories like mine for ladies like us. They'll be back tomorrow with another one. See you then.